Hi everyone, my name is Tanner Fenton.
And I'm Daniel Gonzalez. And for our presentation, we'll be talking about Ibn Daniel, the Arab playwright. So they were born in Mosul, Iraq in the year 1238. You can see it a little bit in the map I have here. A lot of sources give a variation of his name, but for this presentation, we'll just be calling him Ibn Daniel.
So some of his writing influences as a playwright range from all over the world, but one of them was the Mongol invasion when they invaded Baghdad in 1258. So he fled Iraq and fled to Cairo, Egypt, where he spent the remainder of his life. Another influence that he had was his dialogue style. He typically wrote out his plays in a fashion with dialogue and structured scenes. In an Arab culture, this typically wasn't the case. They typically improvised their work, so his style was very unique. The roles that he played within his production also, I think, contributed to how he wrote, because he not only wrote the stories and the dialogue, but he also composed the music, he directed, and he would go out and ask people for money so that he could produce his own works. And then lastly, he was very politically progressive. With a lot of his works would critique societal conventions and societal taboos, and they would involve adult themes such as sexual intercourse, and at the time, homosexuality was very frowned upon. So he was very forward in his writing style. The three works that are listed below are the only surviving works that we have, although we believe that he wrote more. They're translated into The Shadow Spirit, Strange and Bizarre, and The Lover, and they actually are all different. None of them are intertwined or in a series. They all deal with a huge variety of genres and styles. So Arab shadow theater in its purest form involves very detailed cutout figures that would be held up behind a translucent white screen, and then they would be backlighted so that their cutouts would produce silhouettes. Ibn's unique style of Arab shadow theater was usually performed by one puppeteer, and then there would be about two musicians that would play the songs he had written to accompany the puppeteer's dialogue, and then that was it in terms of the cast. So it was very relatively small in terms of production size. And then these are just two images about Arab shadow theater. The one on the left portrays what goes behind the screen and how the puppeteer uses all the different facets of the body and the puppet in order to make them move. And then in the second image, you can see how detailed and articulate these puppets are. And this is what the audience could see. So it's very, very detailed art form.
So, because of the Eurocentric view on theater we've had in the world, much of what might have been known about Ivan Daniel has been lost, so we don't know much about his personal life or even what he looked like. Now, what we do know is that besides being the author of the oldest Arab shadow plays, Ivan Daniel was a poet and an oculist. A better playwright than an oculist, however, he did tend to blind his patients.
So what is his trademark and his legacy on theater? So out of the three plays that Ivan wrote, two of them ended with the protagonist going to Mecca in order to repent their sins. And then the third one is when the personification of death comes to take the protagonist, he pleads to death that will he allow him to go to Mecca to repent. So you can very much see his Muslim perspective incorporated in all of his works. So I feel that his Muslim perspective, as well as his progressive views, are what make him such a unique playwright, because he was able to intertwine these social critiques and taboos into his play, while also focusing on the imperfection of the human spirit and injecting some of his religious culture into his works. So the legacy that he really leaves behind for playwrights is his versatility in all his genres. He could write from drama to tragedy, but he really shines when he wrote comedy. And a huge necessity in him flipping from genre to genre was his range of vocabulary. He could go from very formal to very street slang throughout his works, and it was very impressive, his range of vocabulary. And then his legacy also is that he was the only playwright that had surviving plays before the Ottoman period began. And then a final key takeaway is that his recovered three plays are just now being translated and adapted, and you won't really see any productions before the 1900s. due to the fact that the medieval time and then Eurocentrism deemed a lot of his works to be too obscene so that they would censor them. So now that we are in a much open-minded culture, Arab literary scholars are finally able to restore his initial texts in order to be accurately performed. And we wanted to thank you guys for watching this video. I hope you learned something.